evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting for Wednesday, August 7th. Tonight's agenda is we'll have some minutes to approve, then we'll have a public hearing at 7:05 from National Grid. Ray Estes, the chairman of the school committee, will give the town an update on the school's projects, and then the town engineer, Roger Fernandez, will give us an update on the Derby Street corridor and the project design in that area. So I apologize for our delay, but we were doing interviews, and you'll hear about that later. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes of June 27th?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, we have a public hearing on a request from National Grid to install and maintain some pipe on Prospect Street. And you're busy, and you're back. Good, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Dennis Regan, and I'm a permit representative from National Grid. And tonight, National Grid respectfully requests your consent to install and maintain approximately 100 feet, more or less, of 2-inch gas main in Prospect Street, Hingham. From the existing 2-inch gas main near house number 75, southerly to house 94 for a new gas service.
Okay. Would you have any questions?
How much of Prospect Street is now outfitted for gas?
I have no idea.
Can you, the next time you make an appearance, which I know we're going to see you again, this is more curiosity for me. How many lineal feet of gas line do we have?
I'll get that information for you.
I think that would be really interesting.
If Mr. Sylvester doesn't have it already.
Does Harry have it in his back pocket?
I have plans of most of the existing gas main, but not a total lineal feet.
I'd be real curious, and I think for the public, because you have been very, very active and aggressive in moving gas in, and it is a cleaner fuel.
Okay.
And working with Roger on the road building project, so that would be really interesting.
I'll do the best I can.
Okay.
Great.
Anything on this project?
Is this just for a couple houses?
This is just for one house.
Yikes.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Healy?
Good evening. What's the age of the existing gas line on Prospect Street?
I have no idea. I can tell you it's either a steel gas main or a plastic gas main, but I don't know the year of it.
Is the work that you're proposing here a replacement or an extension of existing gas?
We're extending the gas main so we can feed house 94. The prospective customer approached us about extending the gas main so he can get a gas service.
Is part of the cost of this being underwritten by the individual resident?
The whole cost.
Let's see. And how much of the street will be opened up, the 100 feet?
There'll be a 100-foot trench about 15 inches wide.
On the public way?
Yes.
And Harry, can you tell us when that street was last paved? Are we in that, outside of that moratorium period?
No, that section of road isn't.
Excuse me, this is Harry Sylvester, the
Public Works.
Public Works.
That road hasn't been paved, though. That section of Prospect Street probably about 15 years, a little longer maybe. Yeah, they're extending the gas main in from Main, that piece of gas main comes in from Main Street. It stops roughly near Amber Road, and they're going to extend it down to one of the new homes they're building on Prospect. And then it picks up again, I think, down by Long Meadow. But the portion we're talking about, I'm not sure the age, but there's no leak history in that whole section of road that we're aware of. So the main must be in pretty good shape, probably in the mid-60s, I would say, something like that.
Wow.
Okay.
Thank you. Good. Any questions from the public? Anything further comment?
No, I just spoke to the homeowner who called and was inquired about the grant location process, and she's kind of anxious to get it in the ground, hooked up to her home so she could move in from the fall.
Okay, excuse me. Okay, all right.
That's okay. Sorry for interrupting. What about these other two homes, 71 and 75? Have they been approached?
Well, they have gas in front of their...
already have it.
Well, they have the option. They already have gas in front of... Well, number 75 wasn't approached, or could have been approached and refused, but we don't approach them. because of the deregulation, this prospective customer called and asked for the main to be relayed. If they in turn asked us, if they asked other customers, we would show them how to do it, but we're not allowed to initiate that.
Yeah, just from a efficiency standpoint, it would strike me that these guys ought to be contacted to say, hey,
Yeah, but I think,
yep, I understand the deregulation, so.
The abutters were notified.
yeah, so if they're notified, and then it's their choice. That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, do I have a motion to, Irma, do you want to do the
Sure.
motion?
Move to approve the petition of National Grid for a grant of location to install and maintain approximately 100 feet more or less of 2-inch gas main in Prospect Street, Hingham, from the existing 2-inch gas main near house number 75, southerly to house number 94, for a new gas service. This approval is subject to the stipulation of the Department of Public Works, including letter dated July 18th, 2013.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. The next item on the agenda is in response to a request I made to invite Ray Estes, the chairman of the school committee, to give us an update on the high school fields project. And as Ray is taking his seat, I have a comment I want to set the stage for this evening's discussion. I asked Ray, the chair of our school committee, to update the town on the high school fields project. This is an update, not a revisit of an already made town meeting decision. I understand Ray will give us an update on a number of activities and issues. One area I will not entertain for discussion or question is yet another discussion on the issue of removal of the sod from the high school fields. First, the town has a process for decisions like this. The building commissioner renders his decision, and if there is disagreement, that decision may be applied to, appealed rather, to the Zoning Board of Appeals. The building commissioner has recently issued his decision on the matter of sod removal. Accordingly, it would not be appropriate for the Board of Selectmen to inject themselves into a process still underway. Second, this is not a matter for the Board of Selectmen. The school committee has care and control for matters pertaining to school facilities as given to them by town meeting. Third, if we do not like the current zoning bylaw on the definition of what constitutes soil, loam, or other earth materials, then town meeting can change it. The building commissioner has stated that the removal of grass, sod, or other vegetative material is not soil or loam. Fourth, the school committee is following a practice they used on the middle school, East School, and even the last time the high school fields were addressed. The town as well followed a similar procedure when we built the second field at Margetts and also when we did Carlson Field. Therefore, that all being said, I would now like to welcome Ray Estes to update us on other matters regarding the fields. And I understand, Ray, that you have a requirement to leave by 7:30. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I have a building committee meeting this evening. Thank you very much, Ray Estes, chairman of the school committee. Pleased to be with you this evening. It's been a while.
Good for you to come.
So obviously, folks driving around the high school have seen activity over the last month and a half, and there's a lot going on. So I thought I'd give you an update onto some of the activities that are happening. As you know, this is a significant project. It involves a number of phases, really 3 parts or phases. The main aspect being the fields restoration, rebuilding, and installation of drainage, parking lot expansion, including adding drainage where none existed previously, and the construction of a new concession or facilities building. Every aspect of this project is in some phase of construction right now, with the two sole exceptions of the new softball field that is to be constructed across the wall on Union Street and the concession building. That bid was just awarded recently as a result of a redesign and a rebid. A contract is in the process of being signed, and actually there's a pre-construction conference scheduled already. Building permit application will be submitted this week. With respect to the other aspects, just to give you a quick update, one of the things was the installation of a new fence along the westerly border of the property with Downing Street, 6-foot cedar fence. That's been completed. That was completed in July. In addition, as part of that phase, if you recall, the pipe leading to the culvert under Union Street, which was the wrong circumference, needed to be replaced. That work has now been completed successfully. The beginning of construction of the multi-purpose field is underway with finalization of subgrade preparation and beginning of installation of drainage. That drainage work is ongoing right now. There's drainage work that's begun with respect to the subgrade for the new baseball field that's under construction as well. The new bleachers, all the drawings have been approved, building permits been obtained. Well, it's been verbally obtained. I believe the physical building permit will be available tomorrow. Mike Clancy was actually out at the site today taking a look at a few things, and everything is in good shape with respect to that. So all of the materials have been ordered and will be coming in. Footings have already begun to be installed for that. Probably the one aspect of the project that has gotten the most attention so far, probably because of the rain that we had, which kind of slowed us down in some aspects, was the FAR parking lot, the expansion of that and the installation of the drainage. That's really about 65 to 70% complete at this point, and is on schedule to be completely done by August 26th, prior to convocation, where we'll have all the teachers back for a morning session. So we're excited about that being completed. Let's see. So there's a lot going on there. As I said, the concession building was redesigned and rebid. We made it smaller and changed how it's constructed to try to reduce the cost. The bids did come in higher than we anticipated. We had two cost estimates that were in the mid to high fives. The low bid came in at 605. That low bidder unfortunately was disqualified because it didn't comply with a statutory requirement. So the second lowest bidder, Seaver Construction out of Woburn, was the second lowest bidder and awarded the bid at $611,000. That is 61,000. I'm sorry. Yeah, 61,000 higher than the number we were carrying in the budget at 550. So unfortunately, that made us go in the wrong direction with respect to budget. But I've not met with the folks from Seaver yet. I've talked to them on the phone, and I understand representatives will be meeting with some of our folks tomorrow. So we're excited about getting started with that aspect. Utility work is ongoing. I believe, from my understanding from last week, Sandy Peavy's presence here discussed the possibility of working together to put some facilities in, and I think that's a great opportunity. We're thrilled that they've approached us with that, and those discussions are ongoing, and we're working on getting pricing for the equipment that will be needed, so we can look at that specifically. With respect to numbers, before the concession bid came back and was awarded, we were looking at a project shortfall of $40,000, something that we felt very comfortable we were going to be able to make up in the very near term. Obviously, with the bid coming in higher than what we were carrying, we're now at about 101,000 short. But I just got word this morning, for instance, that another $2,500 came in from a donor group I have a meeting scheduled Monday morning with one individual donor who's going to give me a check for $35,000. So there are things that are ongoing, of course, and we certainly welcome any other donations that are forthcoming. You know, we're not as happy as I think we would be otherwise with the numbers. Obviously, a different situation with the middle school where we got quite fortunate with the bids coming in so low. You know, really can't understand why the bids were higher this time. Not sure if it was the timing, not sure if it was the nature of the work. You know, a number of folks who bid the first time rebid, some did not. Not sure what that indicates, really. But all in all, in talking to our project manager, and just to remind folks, Rad Sports, Rob Delmonico and his brother Derek, they're Hingham folks. Rob, in fact, just moved back to town and bought a house on Main Street. They are the contractor on this project. Our design engineer continues to be Gale Associates, but their role is limited at this point in this phase of the project. We did hire project management for this through PAR Corporation. They're out of Foxborough. Tom Perry, who's an excellent young engineer who worked on several aspects of the middle school project actually with us, is doing the day-to-day project management of this, and I talk to him daily. He's doing a terrific job. So we're very pleased with the team that we have assembled. And the folks that I've talked to on site, you know, all accounts are that construction is going very well, very smoothly, you know, on time right now, and we're hoping for less and less rain as we get through August. August is really the biggest construction month for us. We have a lot of milestones we have to hit this month with respect to getting things ready and prepared for the students to come back at the beginning of September, and the teachers just before that. So there's a lot to do, but they're busy there every day, and we're very pleased with how things are going. So, good. Happy to take questions.
Okay. Just a quick question. Ray, is there a targeted or an estimated date for the first game that we're trying to get to?
A target is probably the best way to characterize it. October 12th is homecoming. That's really the date that Margaret Conity, our athletic director, would like to be able to use the new multi-purpose field. We've already begun discussions with the building commissioner and the Board of Health Administrator Bruce Catman about what, if anything, would be necessary to operate that field prior to the concession building being fully constructed and operable. As you know, that houses the bathrooms. That's part of this project that's necessary, but because of the need to redesign and rebid, we lost about 2 months. So they're no longer on parallel tracks. The concession building will be done later in probably December. So we've already begun those discussions with them. We're going to continue them next week when we meet with them. And so October 12th, I think, is what we're hoping for.
Okay. Okay, good. Paul, any?
Hi, Ray. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
With respect to the subsurface drainage, have there been any kind of field changes that you've encountered?
Sure.
Can you articulate what those might be, and has it affected the calcs that were initially signed off on by the board?
Right. So just a caveat, I'm not an engineer,
Sure.
So this is going to be, you know, a lawyer's understanding of this. But I've learned a lot, so I feel pretty good about it. There were no changes. So everything is being constructed as it was permitted, as it was approved by the Planning Board, by the Conservation Commission, and signed off on by John Chesia, the peer review consultant. In fact, I was out on site with him and Mary Savage Dunham last Friday morning in the rain, looking at the subgrade, and he signed off on it later that day. We did need to, based on some testing that was done when we were under the impression that we were at acceptable subgrade, and this was an opinion. The testing did not indicate the infiltration rates would be what they should be or what they were supposed to be based on what was permitted. So a determination was made that we needed to dig deeper to get to the appropriate material that would drain as it was modeled, as it was permitted. Whether or not the end result would be acceptable. We said we would do X, so we did X. John Chesia came back out and signed off on it, and is comfortable that we got to the material we said we were, and that it'll drain appropriately when the drainage infrastructure is installed. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Ray, thank you for doing a good job as project manager on this project.
Wow. There are many
It's a
people,
journey.
many people involved in this. It's
And
not just me.
also, thank you to Roger.
Yeah. No, Roger's been a tremendous resource
Yep.
during this constantly. He and I have talked quite a bit about a number of aspects of this project.
Several questions. Following up on what Paul started, any surprises as you pulled the old drains out, the piping? Because I went by there watching what turns out to be the J.F. Price trucks, I guess, lugging away the old piping that was under there, the drainage pipes. Any surprises when all that was pulled out?
I don't think there are any surprises. I think folks were anticipating that, the stuff that was there was old, and that was one of the reasons why it just didn't work very well. So I don't think there are any big surprises, really.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Also, with the start of school coming, where are the kids going to park? Or is that,
The far lot will be ready by the end of August.
will it?
Yes.
Oh, that's, wow.
Yeah. The drainage, the installation of the drainage is virtually complete in that area, the extension of it. And I believe that rough course paving will be installed next week, and then final course by the week after. So by August 26th, and that's the target date, that parking lot will be available for folks.
That is amazing, because if anybody drives by it today,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, that was on a critical path. There were a few things that were truly on a critical path, and that was certainly one of them with fall sports starting up, obviously in August even, and with the kids coming back to school and convocation, really the target date for August 26th was circled in red.
should people listening tonight and watching the replay, should they want to donate, how would they do that?
We still, any donation is accepted and gratefully accepted. They can be sent to John Ferris, the Director of Business and
Check
Support
made out to
Services.
John?
Check made out to the Hingham High School Fields Project. And we still have a Donate a Seat campaign where $250 will get you a commemoration on a seat in the stands, or any other donation that anyone feels like they'd like to make.
And just one last thing. I appreciate the comments that you read, Bruce, but I was really hoping we would get to clear the air tonight on the misinformation that is out there. And I understand what you're doing, but I do think it would be a good thing at some point to clear the air.
On the advice of counsel, we should not discuss the issue. We have a process in place, and the process in place requires that process occur, and then there are other appeals to the people who may disagree. That is the way it's been explained to me. And we are obliged to, we can appoint the Zoning Board of Appeals, but we are not permitted to influence their decisions. How this got to be the way it is, we've all spent more than enough time on it, and that's why I made the statement, to protect the process so that people have the right and not to be influenced by a Board of Selectmen. Okay. Any questions from the public? Ray, you have a couple of minutes?
Sure.
Sure. Any questions from the public?
I'm appalled by this. I had a lot to say, and now I have nothing to say. Thank you.
Next. Beth Rockoff.
Beth Rockoff, 36 Pleasant Street. I just am asking, the project was a well-vetted project. I remember coming forward with a separate project and being told I was 6 months behind by Irma, but that it was well-vetted. It went to the town meeting and it was heavily voted in favor. I stand behind the vote that was done at the town, and what I'm asking is now, why are we changing it? Now, the townspeople voted for a project, and now we're shrinking the concession building, and we're doing something different than what the townspeople voted. And who has the authority to do that? I thought the townspeople were the one that were the ultimate authority as to a project, and it was a well-vetted project. It was heavily voted in favor of at town meeting, and so I ask, why are the changes? And secondly, my understanding was when a project goes forward in town, that the money has to be in hand before the project can be, a bid can be accepted. Why is that not the case in this?
Want me, or do you want to?
You can answer if you like. I'm happy to answer.
Why don't you go first, and I'll fill in the blanks.
Okay. With respect to the changes in the project, what we presented at the town meeting was a request for funding. It was based on a project that we had designed and had gotten bids for, but with regard to the concession stand, we weren't happy with the price of the concession stand, and the only way to reduce the cost of the concession stand was to make it smaller and change the aspects of it. That's not something that really needed to go back to town meeting, because town meeting didn't say yes or no to a concession building. They said yes or no to paying for a concession building. It still contains the required number of bathrooms, so we haven't changed that at all. I mean, if you want to put it up on the screen, I have small pictures of the concession design, which you're happy to throw up on the screen.
Bob,
Here's an interior
Bob, can
layout and an
you,
exterior rendering. You know, we spent a long time looking hard at this to try to balance two things, trying to make a cost-effective facility that would still provide all of the things we need, and you know, those two things were a challenge. It still contains the 20 bathrooms that were required. What we did was we shrunk it by 8 feet in length. We retained as much of the storage as we possibly could, including that on a second floor. But we changed it from a year-round building with sheathing and cementatious clapboards to a concrete block building, because frankly it was cheaper to do that. And a number of us fought really hard and long to keep it the way we originally designed it, because that's what we wanted to do, but we just couldn't afford to do it. And so, you know, minor changes like this, in fact, this was a change that didn't even need to go back to the planning board. This was handled by Mary Savage Dunham at the staff level with respect to the change, because it didn't really alter what we were intending to do by building the concession, and in fact making it smaller didn't require planning board approval. With respect to the funding, we have in hand all of the money, either in cash or in negotiable instruments, other than $41,000. And some of the aspects of this project are not yet to be carried out and paid for. What we are doing as a temporary measure, and this was in the paper and folks at our meeting saw this, we are just using as a temporary float, if you will, some money that we have in an athletic revolving account as kind of an offset. And in the meantime, we hope to continue to fundraise and to reduce that shortcoming. But we have virtually all of the money in hand. You know, at one point it was $355,000 that we were short in terms of collections. Since then, we've gotten a letter of credit, which I have in my bag, that represents $150,000. We're getting another negotiable instrument from a bank within the next week, and I was in contact with them today, from another large donor that represents $125,000 of that. As I mentioned earlier, picking up a check from a donor for $35,000 on Monday. That'll be collected. So, you know, much of this has been collected and is represented in money that we do have on hand. We're just talking about a very short number that you know, either we'll be able to find savings in the project as it goes, and we're still looking at opportunities to save money. I've talked to the contractor all the time about that. Or we'll continue to fundraise. You know, one point I'd like to make just with respect to cost savings, and I do have to get to my other meeting, but just like we did with the middle school, we have looked at areas to save dollars. We value engineered. We've looked hard at things, and recently we cut out things that we originally designed in the project because we felt it was necessary to do it. And as a result, we have a number of change orders that are in process right now, but those change orders reduce the overall cost of the project. They do not increase it. Normally, a change order increases the project cost. These reduce the cost of the project as in the form of credits, if you will. So I think what we're doing is responsible. I think we're taking a hard look at everything we possibly can to keep the costs down, and we'll continue to do that.
I think I would just like to add, you're not coming back to the town. The town voted the money they voted. And that's what you're continuing to commit to, and the other monies are going to be addressed accordingly, as you just stated. Okay, in the interests of your schedule, I thank you for giving us your time. I appreciate your adjusting your schedule to take care of this, and I would hope you come back with more information in the near future so we can keep the folks apprised.
I look forward to it. If I could just say really quickly before I go, I missed last week's meeting, but I happened to be able to watch it. And just to follow up Mr. Healy's comments about his visit to the midnight to 8 shift at the police. Many of you heard about the robbery that took place at the middle school early Sunday morning. Today I sent a letter to the chief of police here in town and in Weymouth, and I just wanted to point out that we're very pleased with how our law enforcement reacts and how well they protect and serve their communities.
Well, that's good. No, I saw that letter. Thank you, Ray. That was very nicely done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome. We're going to, I'm going to ask my colleagues, a couple of issues have come up in the press, and I'd like to release some information, so I'm going to take a temporary adjournment to vote some executive session minutes that we have to do by law in executive session. But we will be back in 5 minutes. So, Roger, my apologies. Okay. I knew you would say that. Thank you. Okay, we'll be back in 5 minutes. All right? Thank you. We are back from executive session, and before we move on to the next item, I wanted you to know that the board just voted to release the executive session minutes of July 3rd, 2013. As you recall, you may recall, we discussed the executive session process at our last meeting. Under the open meeting laws, minutes from executive session and all documents used at that sessions may be withheld from disclosure to the public as long as the publication may defeat the lawful purpose of the executive session. Since the town has now filed its complaint against Aquarian, the vote taken on the July 3rd meeting in which the board unanimously voted to initiate the litigation can now be released. This does not, however, change the requirement that the board continue to keep the other aspect of executive sessions on this matter. So what we just voted to do was to release the executive session for July 3rd, where we voted to file the complaint against Aquarian with the Supreme Judicial Court of Suffolk County to seek a determination of the price, which is an area in which we disagree with Aquarian. So those minutes will be available to those who so request them. Okay. The next item is Derby Street, the 25% design, and the town engineer, Roger Fernandez, will give us an update. And I know there are people here who are interested in hearing about it. So, Roger, if you will. Maybe you could start, Roger, with a background as to how did we get to why we're doing this.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Roger Fernandez, town engineer. This project has quite a history. It goes back more than 10 years, actually, before the introduction of the Derby Street shops, even. But in any event, Derby Street corridor itself is within the Mass DOT layout, so it belongs to the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. And the town, acting as the project proponent, is seeking to reconstruct the roadway, improve the signalization, the mobility, pedestrian mobility, and the overall safety issues associated with the Derby Street corridor. Back several years ago, over 10 years ago, the project was originally submitted to the state via project notification form. We received an actual project number, but the Derby Street shops went in, and as part of their off-site mitigation, they improved that section of the corridor. So that project number and the project itself sort of lagged behind. About 5 years ago, the South Shore Chamber of Commerce, along with the Board of Selectmen, collectively recognized that the corridor itself remained uncompleted in a location that both offered economic development and also offered an opportunity to improve it still with respect to safety and mobility. Several months ago, the town once again reapproached Mass DOT, and at that point they asked that we start the process over, and we did, submitting another project needs form, receiving approval from the project review committee at the district level, and ultimately entering into a service agreement with CHA, a engineering firm, which is where Mr. John Morgan resides as a traffic engineer. So we entered into an agreement with Mass DOT to go ahead and continue the design as the project proponents of the project, with the hope that ultimately the corridor itself would be reconstructed. I think it's important to understand that this process itself takes several years, depending on when we can fit in the program, the state's program. So this is the first step, introduction of what amounts to sort of the pre-25% submittal to the state, where we're actually looking for and soliciting comments from the public in hopes to be able to provide a more comprehensive, more open plan for the corridor itself. The state looks for that from us as project proponents to make sure that the project has been well vetted, and this is the first step. And with that, again, I'm joined by John Morgan. I think we'd like to present those plans to you, and I think in the interest of sort of getting the most out of the meeting, instead of just maybe John going through a whole, if you have a question during the process for John or I think maybe you can just stop us and we'll try to answer those questions.
Okay, no, that's good. And thank you, Roger, for the background. I think it's important that this is an iterative process, and it's good for the public to weigh in on what they see tonight. And I know in past projects where we've come together with the state, we tried to incorporate what the comments of the public are. So.
And the last thing I just want to make clear with respect to this project and the programming associated with the project in terms of cost, because that's always a paramount question. The town itself, as project proponents, pay for the design associated with the project. The construction costs themselves are then hopefully borne by MassDOT. So it's our responsibility to permit and design the project, and hopefully it gets recognized and approved by MassDOT at some point and gets funded by that program. Okay. John, you want to come from this side? Is that better for you?
Our mic system isn't, it's modern, but there's no, so if you just keep the microphone near you, make sure the folks at home can hear you.
Can you see it, Bob?
Yep. Okay. All right. So as close as you can get to the mic is to your advantage and ours, okay?
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for having us here tonight. We like to do this type of public outreach early on in our projects so that we can present not only what we're proposing, but also to solicit feedback from the community. So this project, the project limits for this project will start at the westerly end where the intersection project at the Derby, the Pond Park Road intersection project, the signal project, left off over at the Weymouth, near the Weymouth town line. So that's shown at the top left of this plan here. And then it will continue past the ramps to Route 3 and past Derby Shops, which is continued down the bottom of the plan down to an end at Cushing Street. And it's about a 0.8 mile long project. And the goals of this project are really to address any existing infrastructure that's substandard, capacity issues, particularly at the ramps, and any safety deficiencies along the corridor. We're also looking to provide a complete street usable by motorists as well as pedestrians and bicyclists. So we're looking to make improvements for everyone. We're also looking to do provide for accommodation for future development as well, provide capacity for future economic development that may occur in this area. Some of the major existing deficiencies are at the two off-ramps from Route 3. Turning left off of either one of these off-ramps is a very difficult thing to do. At most times of the day, it operates at a level of service F. Grades go from level of service A to level of service F, F being the worst, meaning that there's long delays for anyone trying to turn left at those locations. The other things we're trying to address are bicycle accommodations. Right now, the shoulders along the Derby Street corridor aren't wide enough to meet MassDOT's recommendations for bicycle accommodations. They like to see at least 5 foot shoulders, and they're only currently about 3 feet in most places. And we're also looking to improve pedestrian access. There's a couple of locations. There's a crosswalk near Old Derby Street currently that is very difficult to cross at. And there's also a lack of sidewalk on the north side of Derby Street from Old Derby Street down to Cushing Street. There is no sidewalk on that side of the street. So what are we proposing? We're proposing new traffic signals at the end of both of the ramps, both northbound and southbound, which would allow for signalized access on and off. Left turns would be under signalized control. The right turns on and off the ramps would still be under yield control. They would not be under signalized control. So in order to put these signals in, we need to add some additional lanes, both through lanes and turn lanes, left turn lanes onto the ramps. There'll be The proposed would be 2 through lanes in the eastbound direction at the southbound ramp on this side of the highway. There would be a left turn lane onto the ramp, and there would be 1 through lane headed westbound at that intersection. At the intersection at the northbound ramps, there would be 2 through lanes in each direction. There'd be a left turn lane onto the ramps, and we would also propose to put 2 left turn lanes off of the off ramp. That can be accommodated because there's 2 receiving lanes in the eastbound direction. So all of these improvements are proposed to add capacity to the intersections. Both of these intersections would operate at overall level of service B or better in each of the peak hours under these proposed conditions. And this is, we looked at a 10-year projection of traffic volumes out to, based on, an annual growth rate as well as any known development projects. So we've done projections. We've modeled this entire corridor using our software, analysis software. And one other thing we would do is, in addition to signalizing these intersections, we would propose to coordinate each of these signals along Derby Street, the one at Pond Park Road, the 2 new ones that are proposed, the one at Derby Shops, and the one at Cushing Street. They'd all be linked by probably by a spread spectrum radio type of communications device that would allow them to talk to each other. Having these closely spaced signals, we want to make sure that people aren't going to hit a red light at every light. And the goal will be to have a good flow along the corridor. So some of the other benefits, the other proposed improvements, what we'll end up with is, as we're proposing, we're proposing to have 2 through lanes starting from the Weymouth Town line in the eastbound direction and continue those 2 through lanes the entire length past Cushing Street and down to Gardner Street and continue. So in order to do that, we'd have to restripe over the bridge, which is currently 1 lane in each direction over Route 3. That still needs to be approved by Mass DOT. Initial conversations have indicated that that may be acceptable, but we have to go through their whole review process. We are not able to get 2 through lanes the entire way in the westbound direction, mainly because of limitations at the bridge. It's not wide enough to accommodate 4 travel lanes. So we would propose 2 through lanes in the westbound direction to end just past the proposed signal at the ramps to the north, for the northbound ramps. And then they would narrow down to 1 lane over the bridge and continue as 1 through lane out to Weymouth, where it's currently 1 through lane at the Pond Park Road intersection.
So, if I may, that is what it is now, 1 lane all the way to Weymouth once you pass the Pond Park Road intersection.
Yes.
And so you would, what I'm hearing you say is you're going to gradually transition to that 1 lane from that northbound ramp exit. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Once we get through the northbound lane, northbound ramp, the 2 through lanes would transition to 1. Vehicles would have to merge, and then from that point, it'd be 1 lane all the way into Weymouth in that direction.
Okay. And then synchronized lights across the 5 lights that you mentioned.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see, Irma?
Well, let's start with why not go all the way to Gardner Street?
Well, that's a good question. The Mass DOT is actually proposing a separate improvement project at Gardner Street that will meet where we're ending off at Cushing Street. So there's a separate project to improve that intersection, and we're coordinating with them to have our project's limits meet at the same location.
It would make sense to me that if you're coordinating all the lights, to also coordinate Gardner Street, because that intersection is just awful, and that's on a good day.
Yeah, that's a very difficult intersection.
You're so politically correct.
Very, very difficult intersection. We actually have Gardner Street in our model, and we looked at the feasibility of coordinating that intersection with all the rest of the intersections. And because it's such a big intersection, it requires a different cycle length to go through and service all 5 legs of that intersection than all these other intersections would require. That makes it very difficult to coordinate. The rest of these intersections, we look at it like probably a 90-second cycle length to go through all the different phases of the signal. The intersection at Gardner Street, I believe they're proposing 120 seconds to go through all the phases, 2 minutes. So they don't match up well for coordination. But we are, looking at that and what can be done. So we're working with the DOT on that.
Where's your choke points with the new scenario? Where's it going to back up? Because to me, just looking at that and trying to remember queuing theory,
Yeah.
you're going to have backups going onto the expressway during your very busy times where you've now got a signalized light?
No, actually, I mean, the off-ramps will work better than they do today. Right now, they work at level service F, and the software will tell you the queues are going to be thousands of feet. They don't quite get there normally because people will they'll accept gaps in traffic to get off of the ramp smaller than they should, and the backups don't end up as big as the model says it would. So the queues, once the signals are in place, will actually be shorter than they are today.
2 other questions, and I'll come back later.
Okay.
One for Roger. The funding for the design phases, do we already have that tucked away somewhere? Did we go to town meeting for that?
We went to town meeting, we received $75,000 at town meeting, and we received an additional $60,000 from A.W. Perry, a gracious gift toward the project, as an outfall of the Bone and Muscle Center. So this upcoming town meeting, I'm going to have to ask for more money to cover the costs associated with the engineering.
Any idea how much?
$232,000 in total. So we have $135,000 available. We'll need the balance. The good news is, to your original question, is that originally, as part of the project, when we submitted to the state, it was to include from the Pond Park Road intersection, where the current lights are now, all the way up to the Gardner Street intersection, which incidentally is the second worst intersection in the town. But after some negotiations with Mass DOT, they agreed to act as the project proponents. That means that the town of Hingham is no longer paying for the design costs associated with that intersection. They are. So they're actually, I think they're ahead of us in terms of what they've, a little ahead of us in terms of where they are with the design. So that it's not inexpensive, but we're better off, I think, overall.
Are the 2 of you going to address timeframes later on? Then I'll pass to somebody else to ask some questions.
Sure, I can address that now. We're looking to finish up the 25% design around the end of the month and make a submittal to Mass DOT. So we're very close to being complete. We'll obviously consider any comments and feedback that we get today, and then work that into our documents. Once we make a 25% design submittal to Mass DOT, they will then review that. Their reviews can take quite a while. They can be 6 months or more for a 25% submittal review. So it could be quite a while before anything really happens on this project again. The next step, once they finish their review, would be a formal design public hearing, which Mass DOT actually coordinates, and they come out and go over the project, and we will do another presentation at that time as part of the hearing. They'll go over all of the right-of-way and other issues that may be involved in the project. Once that public hearing is held, then we would move into the 75% design. The 75% design will take a few months to complete, 3 or 4 months probably worth of design. That submittal would then go back to Mass DOT for another review. And then there will be, after that, there would be 100% design, and then there'll be a final PS&E submittal of the final plans. All that can take several years to get
My
through the
lifetime,
process.
maybe? Is it within my lifetime?
Depends on the priority of the project, based on the regional planning agency. They prioritize the projects and put them into a specific funding year. And then if the project gets prioritized, then the reviews and the design will go faster, because everybody wants to see it get built.
Roger? Yeah.
Well, it's about a $4 million project, and at that size, there's potential that it might slip in an earlier program. But in parallel with the design, at some point after the 25% is submitted, we get closer to 75%, then it's our job here at this table to sort of go up to Boston and meet with those folks and make sure that they understand that this project is important to us, and just to make sure that we're on their radar screen moving forward. And they have an annual meeting that takes place, and that's actually more than that, where they provide an opportunity for municipalities to come forward and continue to present a project and its importance to that community. So.
Let me just comment before I turn it over to Paul. Some time ago, the previous boards of selectmen had indicated this was our top priority because of the impact economically for the town, and also to correct, as you pointed out quite well, addressing the safety issues that the public confronts. That is, unless we decide otherwise, that is still our plan. I know the folks who may be watching this at home on Summer Street are concerned as well as to how we fix that, because that relates to our waterfront, which is becoming an important aspect for us. So that's a subsequent discussion, but this is on its glide path. And if we were to say, if you got a green light in a year, is that a reasonable assumption from what you said to proceed? How long would construction be? What are we talking about? To Irma's point, will we be here? I guess that's your...
That's my, yes.
I would say it's probably about a year's worth of construction.
Is that your question, or is your question when we're going to be able to start construction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 5 years?
It's probably at least 3 years before construction would start. It could be up to 5 years, or possibly even longer if for some reason that the DOT does not allow this to be a priority.
Okay, the reason I asked that question is we put the Pond Park on a fast track to get that done. So that may be a point you should keep in the back of your mind, because it's important.
We'll do everything we can to expedite the designs, and we'll work with Roger and the town to go to the meetings for the MPO regional planning agencies and make sure that we do everything we can to help move this project. So.
I was taking Mr. Healy's time. I apologize, Paul.
Good evening, Mr. Morgan.
Good evening, Paul.
Let's start with your assumptions. Did you do a traffic count to establish what the volume is on Derby Street presently?
Yes, we did full traffic counts for this project back in June of 2012. And those were done at every intersection along the corridor, as well as certain locations. Daily counts were taken at certain locations along the corridor.
Old Derby Street, Cushing Street?
Yes.
Okay. And I have observed traffic queuing on Route 3 at the exit ramps. Have you? As part of your traffic count analysis?
Queuing on to Route 3?
Yes.
I have not personally observed it.
Okay. Were there particular times when you did these traffic counts?
Well, we counted during the peak hour periods, morning and the afternoon, and on a Saturday at midday.
And what is the traffic volume during peak hour on Derby Street presently? Or at least during the time you did it?
The daily traffic on Derby Street is about 27,000. I think the peak hour was, I want to say, it's over 2,000 cars an hour.
And you indicated that you projected forward 10 years to calculate in the annual growth?
Yes.
And what would that be in 10 years without any growth?
We use the annual growth of 1% per year without without the specific projects. We also included the proposed Herb Chambers dealership that is currently proposed. And I think our numbers included the Avalon development, which is no longer proposed.
Who's the engineer on that project?
The engineer for the
Yeah, for the applicant, for Chambers.
Chambers?
Yeah.
CHA is also working with the, which is our company, yes.
Are you the traffic engineer on both projects?
Yes, I am.
And have you spoken with the Bristols relative to their development plans in this area?
I've asked John, as part of what he's doing, we've worked together to try to make sure that we're trying to forecast something on that property. We know that there's a dealership going in, that John has the values for that, but John also, based on a buildable area on that parcel, the overall parcel, did project what that traffic volume might look like. And I think you looked at 1.5 million square feet of space, and about 50% of that potentially using that intersection.
Yeah, we looked at
What intersection?
We have run this model to include potential future development of the Bristol property of 1.5 million square feet of business park development. We are not sure if that's what will ultimately get built, but we wanted to model something that may fit on that parcel.
Well, you are aware, are you not, that the Bristol property connects with Pleasant Street and Weymouth, correct?
Yes, we assume that it would connect to both Weymouth and to Route 53, and we assume 3 different access points to that property when we did our analysis.
And you are aware that Pleasant Street presently generates 18,000 vehicle trips per day, correct?
Yes.
And in your professional opinion, is the existing bridge wide enough for the kind of traffic growth that we've just been talking about a moment ago?
Yes, our analysis is indicating that it is,
A single lane?
that it will function.
Is the bridge that's being built over Route 3 going into the Hanover Mall, is that 1 lane in each direction or 2 lanes in each direction? Or do you know?
It's 2 lanes.
I think it's 2 lanes each direction, I'm not positive.
And is there a reason why you think 1 lane in this direction would be sufficient in light of the anticipated growth in this area of town?
We've run the analysis, and it indicates that it will be sufficient.
So this is all done on modeling?
Yes.
Do you think the existing suicide lane on Derby Street is sufficient for existing traffic?
And let me show my ignorance. What's a suicide lane?
Suicide lane is a
You know what it
two-way
is, right,
left
Mr. Morgan?
turn lane, and that is, basically, that runs between the 2 signals at Cushing Street.
Oh, the middle lane.
The middle lane.
And the Derby shops.
Never heard it called that.
The road diet?
Part of that lane would be a left turn only lane at the signals itself, but in between where it's left turn only, it's allowed to be a 2-way left turn lane.
Well, do you think the existing queuing lanes are adequate as they're presently configured?
Yes.
You do? Are you making any kind of suggestions with respect to improvement of those in this 25% plan?
No, we're not proposing to change the operations at Cushing Street or at the Derby Shops intersection. They're currently operating at level of service C in the peak hours, and we're not proposing additional lanes or widening for additional lanes at this section of the road.
What about Cushing Street? Any changes proposed there?
The only proposed changes at Cushing Street, we're proposing to add a new sidewalk from Old Derby Street down to Cushing Street, so there would be some minor changes at the signal to accommodate a crosswalk across Cushing Street, new handicap ramps, some pedestrian signals there.
What would be the impact of curb cuts on the Bristol property on Derby Street? Additional curb cuts?
I believe the Bristol property, the Herb Chambers property is proposing a right-in, right-out only curb cut. That curb cut would function at a level service B, and
Is it going to tie into the existing traffic control signal intersection of Derby Shops?
no, it's not. I think it comes out about halfway between Old Derby Street and the signal at the shops.
Has that been approved by the planning board at this point?
No, it is not.
Okay. And have you seen a master plan generated by the Bristols on the Bristol site?
No, I have not.
And what is the model, again, that you're calculating or you're assuming with respect to the traffic coming out of that site fully developed?
We're assuming that they would, that their main access to that property would be from Old Derby Street, and that there would be potentially a future traffic signal at Old Derby Street.
Are you aware, sir, that the Bristols proposed a feeder onto the entrance ramp of Derby Street going onto the highway as part of their effort to get this area rezoned at town meeting in Hingham a couple years back to take the pressure off of Derby Street?
I don't recall that.
Did they show you that?
I don't recall it.
Do you think that the queue lanes with the traffic control signal that you have will be adequate to deal with the volume on Derby Street as cars come off the highway?
Yes, we've looked at the queue lanes at all the proposed intersections.
Do you have any concerns that the traffic control signal will drive more cars out onto Route 3,
More cars out.
waiting during peak traffic times, rush hour?
No, our analyses are indicating that these ramps would work much better with the signal there than they do currently, and that the queues would be much shorter than they are now.
Have you taken this plan to the planning board yet, or is this your first stop?
You wouldn't have to take the plan to the planning board.
Not even for comment?
I mean, we could do that if you would like, Mr. Healy, as a comment. I know your name, I could see it right there.
Too easy.
We can certainly do that if that is
I
one of the...
strongly recommend it.
Sure, absolutely. This is an opportunity for everybody to comment. So we have not done that. It's not a requirement for us to do that. We would be happy to do that, absolutely.
I think what I'm hearing Paul say is the size of the bridge, the width of the bridge, and then the planned construction of some potential increased traffic generators. And I think the caution that I'm hearing him say is how much leeway do we have in your planning model? If something happened,
Right.
we want to be sure that if you're off by 10%, 20%, 30%, that we have an accommodation for that. Having lived through a number of projects in my life where they said they thought it was going to be okay, and I'll just say, let me just take Route 3 in general. Greenbush was going to take 5,000 cars, I think was the number, off the road. And I'd love to get stuck in traffic at 5:30 in the morning. I don't understand how that happens. It doesn't happen in London, and it doesn't happen in New York, but it happens here. So we're concerned about the size of the model. That's all. How much play do we have?
Duly noted, but I think it's important to just revisit the process again. All these comments are well received, but after we meet with you folks, the calculations, all the traffic data then gets submitted to Mass DOT. And in that room, we're surrounded by other traffic engineers, other engineers who review what's going to happen on their own corridor. So it does go through a high level of scrutiny. I think that the reason why we hire a traffic engineer, and we go through this quite a bit, is the science is intended to take the subjectivity out of it, and I think at some point we have to trust that if John's plugged in the model and he tells us that the intersection is going to work better, if there's somebody else is generating another model they want to share, we'd be more than willing to look at that, but I think at some point we have to trust that that's going to work. And again, like I said, the process itself is going to involve just another level of scrutiny by MassDOT. It's their corridor, they have a strong interest in making sure that it's going to operate correctly, because at the end of the day, we turn this back over to them. They've got to then operate this thing and make it work.
You know, I think the other issue that wasn't mentioned is we're in the process of updating our master plan for the town, as you know,
Sure,
Roger.
absolutely.
And the more current data you get out of that will help improve your assumptions, I think. And, you know, in terms of defining the parameters of what this will try to address. And I think Paul's suggestion, I think Irma would agree, that going to the planning board and getting that master plan data as well would help affirm your conclusions, whatever they may be. So I think, Mr. Hill.
I'd just like to say, not so much to you, Mr. Fernandez, but to the public. This is an area in town where a lot has been staked out in terms of economic growth and development. We voted a zoning change for expedited permitting. We're looking to redevelop the industrial park in time. And the plans that I saw, really, you're still working with 1958 dimensional roadways. We're past 1958. We're way past that. The traffic volume on that neck of the woods is just too intense, and anybody who travels through it on a daily basis will attest to that. I don't think you need a model to know that. I think this project needs a little more energy with respect to its design. With all due respect to you, sir, the planning board encountered this on the 228 reconstruction, and we weighed in on the 25% plan and made some substantive changes. This was in the 90s, and Main Street turned out better for it. So I think I thank you for coming in, for pointing this out now, because this really is the time to have this conversation, not when it's at the 75% design stage.
Sure.
But I just think we need to be a little more aggressive with respect to handling the volume that we anticipate will be coming on Derby Street in the future.
All right, Irma?
Let me follow up on a couple of things Paul said. I think you need to get the plan from the Bristol brothers. I went looking for it. I guess it doesn't exist yet. I think they're looking to develop that piece of land, which could affect the dynamic model. Because these models are great. I know that it's better than doing it by hand in the stagecoach days. But they're only as good as the data you're given to feed into it. I was also surprised that the bridge was not going to 4 lanes. Because if you go to Hanover and you look at what's being done there, and I can't help but assume that we get as much traffic, if not more, into Derby Street than the Hanover Mall does. And I could be wrong on that. But there are always backups at Derby Street, and I didn't know it was called the suicide lane. I can understand why, because it's kind of whoever has the guts to get in the lane first gets the space. That's kind of interesting that you've left that without trying to widen the road. And I know you got easements and all other kinds of things. But looking at the traffic that's there all the time, I was just surprised at that. Yeah.
I can say that it would be a benefit to have 2 lanes on each direction at the bridge. But it would require complete reconstruction of the bridge, a brand new bridge. There is no way to just easily widen the bridge. And it would be a very expensive project, and it would probably push the timeline of getting this project constructed out, another 10 or more years.
Is that what was done in Hanover? Did they completely redo the bridge? Because I know that's been in a phase of construction for what seems like a lifetime.
Yeah, they did.
They did. Is that what happened there?
Yeah, they widened it.
Yeah, I know that.
But now it'll last.
I don't know the whole history of their design process.
It would be good. I think what you're hearing is that's the comparison.
Right.
I travel that bridge somewhat frequently, and it was disruptive to the area when they did it, but the solution today now is it makes for an easy flow onto Route 3, and folks who want to travel up 53 can now do it better. in both directions because of the extra lane. So that may be the issue of something we're asking you to go back and just take a look at.
Okay.
And I think going back to make sure that your counts are more accurate would be also in tune.
One last question.
Sure.
Did Derby Street give you any expansion plans?
No, we don't have any expansion plans from Derby Street.
Yeah, that's a good point, because we just voted at town meeting to the Avalon, that apartment building, that complex that you put in is not going to be there now, but there are other expansion opportunities that the Derby shop may comment on as to how they may envision adding to the property that they have. I don't know that. I do know that we've been approached by developers or current landowners to consider that, expansion. So it's just something else to factor in. That's a good point, Irma. So,
Linden Ponds, if there's going to be a cut-through, did I hear that right, to go to 53? Is there going to be a lot of traffic coming in and out of Linden Ponds? Because that place is fairly large, and people have cars there.
I don't know the exact plans for the Bristol property. I've seen the preliminary things that were done back at the town meeting, which showed a connection out of Route 53, a connection off of Pleasant Street, and a connection on Derby Street that would allow for cut-through traffic. I don't know the status of that.
So just as a takeaway, I think what we're hearing is that you want us, first of all, to make sure that we're meeting with the planning board, and that's a given, and then also to take a more comprehensive look at other potential impacts that other projects might have on this corridor.
Absolutely.
So we will do that. We will do that.
This is really great.
vigor.
Don't
Sure.
take our concerns that we're throwing out there. There's a lot of work here, and working those models is not that easy.
Right.
But thank you so much.
no, this is good.
Thank you for
Yeah.
And again, I'll remind you, as Roger knows, we have another project sitting out there that in the Hingham Rotary that's on our list. So we want to do this right, and we want to do that right. So they're part of us. The state asked us to prioritize. Both of those were important to us. We did this first because of the economic reasons, but that timeline is not long behind it. I think that's the concern. So
Right.
tell us what we need to do to help you. We're not trying to work against you. We're really trying to help you.
Okay.
Let me open it up. Any questions from the public or comments, if anybody? Come, please. Could you just tell us who you are, sir?
I'm Bob Frazier. I'm Senior Vice President of Development for WS Development. We own and operate the Derby Street shops.
Good.
So I think, and I commend, I know this has been, when we first redeveloped Hingham Plaza, we did Derby Street. The state was going to be working on this project you have before you. So I think this is a good thing for you to support and pursue. That being said, it was mentioned that we're looking for expansion, and we would like to cooperate with the town to look at expansion. However, if and when we do that, the infrastructure to support the expansion would have to be there. We would probably, if we're expanding, put it there. And I know the Bristols have a significant project that would benefit the community as well. Should that project move forward in the time frame, all that would have to piggyback on these existing improvements. And they would have to basically recreate a traffic study and provide infrastructure in order to accommodate those developments. So this is really just step one, and I understand your concerns. We have concerns with the existing infrastructure out there today. We do our best to take as much traffic off the corridor and put it in the shopping center as we can.
Why do you do
I think we've
that?
done a pretty good job at that. We're trying to find a place to park.
We're hoping that, by the way.
So, Mass Highway, though, however, doesn't take that into consideration. We like to attract the traffic coming by on the roadway. And when I look at the traffic numbers, we're not pulling enough into the center now. But I think that there is, in the future, the opportunity for the town and the planning board to benefit from future development. But each step of the way, each project is going to have to justify itself with their own enhancements to the existing infrastructure.
That's well
And this
said.
does take a long time. I know I've been working on a project with an interchange in Bellingham since 1995. Okay, so, to get the 25% design is a milestone, which is very important to
So
move
this
forward.
this is also a religious experience. Is that
Really
what
is.
you're putting on the table? Okay. Thank you for your comments. I saw another Mr. Costello.
Good evening. Jim Costello, 494 Cushing Street. I got a question on the bike lanes. Is there east and west, or is it just one direction? Where does it begin, and where does it end?
Okay, what we're proposing is to have a 5-foot shoulder, which is wide enough for bicycle accommodations, on both sides of the road, the entire length of the corridor. And to do that, there would be some reassignment of some of the width of the road. Basically, some of the lanes would narrow from 12 feet to 11 feet in order to provide a little bit more room in the shoulder for the bicycle.
And it would go from the Route 3 south down to Cushing Street?
Yes.
Exit?
From Cushing Street all the way past Route 3 to the Weymouth Town line would all have the wide.
Can I ask a question? Where would the cyclists come from?
Well, you might want to talk about what's required by Mass DOT.
Yeah, Mass DOT pretty much requires to have that 5-foot width for roadways now. And I mean, the bicyclists, obviously, once they get outside of our area, may not have that 5 feet anymore. But in the future, those roads may be improved, and when they're improved, they would also need to.
There's a lot of neighborhoods right off that road.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
But there's no access. It goes from Cushing Street. It doesn't go from Gardner, correct?
The state's doing the project from Cushing Street to Gardner Street. They will also have 5-foot shoulder.
The other issue, I'm constantly befuddled with traffic studies on Derby Street that are conducted in June. You cite peak travel at 2,000 vehicles a day. If you want to do something to get into the real volume of traffic on Derby Street, you do it on a weekend between Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's what you want to do. I mean, I don't understand. Could you explain that to me? Why you do it in June and not in that period?
Typically, you like to do your traffic counts in an average period. What we're proposing here will operate well. It has additional capacity, so it has additional capacity for more cars during the peak Christmas season.
Wouldn't you feel better as an engineer if you had facts and figures that demonstrated at the peak? I mean, you cite peak traffic morning and afternoon. It seems to be the volume in the daytime where there's most traffic there. And I agree with you. Derby Street shops, they do attract a lot of traffic.
Yeah, if I could just add to Jim's comment, we just had this issue on Summer Street where the study that was initially done, not by your organization, was done in a non-peak period. The summer happens to be the peak period, hence the name Summer Street, odd enough. But doing that enlightened the solution as to what the options were as to what we could do. So I think that's the suggestion. Just a snapshot of that might help clarify the concern that you're hearing here.
If you're allowed to do more than one traffic study, it would be good to do one during the peak period, because I know you don't engineer for peak. You engineer for 80% or thereabouts during an average time. But it would show you, it's dramatic. It really is. And with the signaling that you're proposing to put in, I do think you're going to see serious backups onto the expressway.
Something we can look at.
Mr. Costello.
One more observation. Did I hear you correctly to say that if you rebuilt the bridge that could delay the project 10 years?
Well, the problem with rebuilding the bridge is it's a much more expensive project. And then they have to fit it into a year for funding, it may take a lot longer.
Well, you can continue the work on building the corridor that's proposed now and deal with that as a separate project. You don't have to hold up the project to consider the bridge. I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
The town could certainly look to have the bridge even as a separate project and get that going, and start, have that as a future improvement.
Yeah, because I think another issue that's here is what's going to happen to Route 3. We have that Derby Street, well, I'll call it a consolidation, where we go from 3 to 2 lanes. That's why I get off the exit earlier. So what happens there is an issue, and that would be something we'd like to hear, I think, to Jim's point about making sure the plan gets as much info into it. Do it right the first time, and we'll all be better off for it. So, am I saying that right?
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Excuse me. Any other
Sorry.
question? Okay. Irma, you had?
What's the standard roadway width now?
Standard,
Just a lane?
a lane width.
Yep.
For an arterial, it's typically 11 to 12 feet.
An urban arterial?
Yes.
And that we will still end up with 11 to 12-foot wide lanes?
Yes.
Because it gets interesting with some of the bigger SUVs when you've got them side by side. Kind of hope they both kind of inhale.
Is Chevy going to stop Suburbans? Is that the,
Well, they're not the biggest things out there now.
They're more, right. Any other questions? Anything else, Paul? You'll be back to us after you come to the planning board, Roger, and hear what you say?
I do have one comment. I'm welcoming the Bristols to the meeting. Thank you for coming. I know you gentlemen always sit silently and nod and smile, but I really would like you to participate. As a major landowner, we have the Derby Shop representative here. I really think that without having a better sense as to what you're doing on that side of Derby Street, we're a little off tilt. And, it makes it hard to plan, and it makes it hard to justify the kind of aggressive traffic improvements that I'm agitating for here tonight.
We'd like to see a plan from you guys. Is that another way of saying it?
Sooner than later.
Well, we can invite you back if you'd like.
Come on,
Well, I mean, it helps us, and it will help you with whatever you decide, so. Okay, very good. Okay, any other comments from the public? Mr. Morgan, thank you. Roger, if I could ask you, once I think you've heard what you get in information from the planning board, if you can get back to us, that would be helpful. Understanding but I think, as Paul said, getting it up front is better than later on.
Nope, and that's the intent of the process.
Right, I understand.
As a matter of fact, you are the first to see it, so the state hasn't even seen anything yet, so here you go.
That's why you're so calm. Okay.
I'm glad you came in here first.
Thank you. I think you two have done a great job.
Thank
I think you have.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, we have some votes to take. Good. Let's see, who did Mr. Healy, I think you have the,
Okay.
This is all the equipment.
yeah, the equipment stuff. Well,
Do you want to just summarize what?
yeah, these are purchases for our vehicles and that have been approved by town meeting capital planning.
Okay, I'll make a motion then that we vote to approve the purchase of a 2013 four-wheel drive dump truck from Liberty Chevrolet in the amount of $52,288.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Move to approve the purchase of a 2013 Chevrolet K3500 regular cab pickup truck from Liberty Chevrolet in the amount of $32,487.50.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Move to approve the purchase of a 2013 International 4400 bucket truck from Minuteman Trucks, Inc. in the amount of $134,851.54.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to approve the purchase of a 2013 International 7300 six-wheel dump truck with plow and built-in sander from Minuteman Trucks Incorporated in the amount of $134,851.54.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have a couple of appointments to make. Irma, since you brought Michael to us, that's not on your vote list.
I can do that.
Yeah, to appoint.
I move to appoint Michael Ide to the Conservation Commission.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Mr. Healy, we have another appointment.
I'll move to appoint Scott R. Peterson to the Development and Industrial Committee to fill an unexpired term ending in 2015.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
We have two members of the Zoning Board of Appeals who will be reviewing some activity at the Hingham shipyard, and we need to make that public in their roles on the ZBA. So we have a vote to that effect as to that matter. So, Mr. Healy, if I could ask you, since...
Sure. I'll move to determine that the interest of Joseph Friedman and W. Todd McGrath in the application for modification of the mixed-use special permit for the Hingham shipyard is not so substantial as to be deemed likely to affect the integrity of the services which the town may expect from them, and to allow them to participate in the Zoning Board of Appeals consideration of this application.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, and on August 24th, we have Massachusetts Farmers Market Day in Hingham, and we have a proclamation to read on that day, which will be read then, of course, and I think it would be appropriate to read it now, Irma, if you would. And
right.
I'm going to I cannot be there on that day. I'm going to a 4th birthday party, so I need to rest up prior to that. So, and I hope the house that he lives in is still there, that my grandson, anyway. Go ahead, Irma, if you would.
All right. Proclamation. Whereas His Excellency Deval L. Patrick, Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, has proclaimed August 18 through the 24, 2013 to be Massachusetts Farmers Market Week. And whereas farmers markets are essential to the viability of Massachusetts farms and are part of the cultural tradition of the Commonwealth. And whereas the Commonwealth is home to more than 250 farmers markets, which create a festive, open-air setting which enhances community spirit and civic pride by offering a natural place for community gathering. And whereas over 100 farmers markets participate in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, thereby increasing access to fresh, healthy foods to all citizens of the Commonwealth. And whereas farmers markets help heighten public awareness of the agricultural diversity of Massachusetts and the benefits of buying local and preserving open space. And whereas it is befitting for the citizens of Hingham to recognize the continued contribution of farmers markets to local consumers, as well as their positive impact on the economy of the Commonwealth. And whereas Hingham's tradition of its farmers market, now in its 35th season, makes it the 3rd oldest in the Commonwealth. Now, therefore, we, the Hingham Board of Selectmen, do hereby proclaim August 24th, 2013 to be Hingham Farmers Market Day, and urge all citizens to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance, dated the 7th day of August, 2013, signed by the three of us.
Okay, great. So, thank you. Thank you, Irma. Paul, if you could put the vote.
Okay. I'll move then to proclaim August 24th, 2013 to be Massachusetts Farmers Market Day in Hingham.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations, Mark, and boy, I'll tell you, you had to fight for parking spaces on Saturday down there.
It's a good thing.
That's a good thing. Betty, any town administrator or assistant reports?
Nothing this week.
Okay. Irma, any?
One thing, I want to recognize Carol Hughes of the Hingham Garden Club and the committee that headed up, I believe, by Shirley Rydell, and I can't remember everybody that was on the committee, that procured the sculpture in Founders Park that was unveiled today. And I would urge everyone to go down there and take a look at it. It is spectacular with a lot of turtles and frogs on it, and it's just really well done and a very nice place for people to kind of sit and perhaps eat ice cream. Not that I want to eat ice cream or anything much.
Okay.
So anyway.
Okay, thank you. Paul?
Yeah, I have a couple things. I just want to let the townspeople know that last Friday I had occasion to go to the dispatch center here in Hingham, which, as most of you may know, is a regional dispatch center. Really just to kind of look and see how things are run and operated. I once did some dispatching when I was a police officer. It's a very different process now, but the need is the same. I look forward to sharing with my colleagues in the appropriate manner my observations. Talk to Mr. Alexiadis upon his return. Saturday, I went and met with one of the fire groups. The chief has got his men and women divided into groups. I had a chance to address them. I felt welcomed by the fire. And lastly, I'd like to recognize the work done by Officer Mark Bologna with respect to the arrest made up at the middle school. I thought that reflected some excellent police work on the part of the midnight shift in general, and Officer Bologna in particular. Stealing copper out of buildings and tools is that's something that unfortunately is plaguing homeowners and in a lot of different courts, and that was a great arrest, so good work.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Paul. We join you in that commendation. I received an inquiry today on a letter that was sent to the Board of the Selectmen concerning the Lincoln School apartments and the failure of an elevator in that. I know that the members of the Board of Managers at the Lincoln School Apartments talked to the individual who wrote that letter, and that they are conducting an investigation on the ramifications of it. For the benefit of the folks at home, the elevator failed on a Saturday, and apparently in the evening, and there was subsequently a failure of air conditioning on the same event, and that caused a call to the fire department, and the elevator failed. And the fire department, however, by inserting their key that they have for emergency access to elevators, caused the elevator to be restored. But the question is, what were the procedures and what was done and how fast was it done? And obviously there was some anxiety for the folks in Lincoln School Apartments. So there will be more on this subject, but I would say at the moment that the initial issue is concerned, and some more definitive definitions as to how to handle emergencies at that apartment building are underway. So we'll hear more on that at our next meeting, which will be on August 22nd. So if that's it. Is there anything else anybody want to add? Okay. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Stay safe and enjoy the weather.